Let's tidy up this tangle of film by putting it on a reel. Here is a motion picture film, 1,000 feet, 16,000 separate photographs.
Welcome, everybody, to the official space section of the chart.
What's the truth? You can't handle the truth.
Sir, you're out of order. Out of order. I show you out of order.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Micheal Petrow.
I'm Ian Bawa.
And I'm Allan Wong.
And we're the Real Debaters this week, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. This is where the art of cinema meets the power of debate. This is the Fascinasian episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, Asian Heritage Month and everything. I feel like, why don't we dedicate an episode to some Asian cinema and talk Asian movies and everything else? So
we're going to talk about us for a second before we actually get into all of this stuff, because we've got some things happening. Ian has been away. I think it's been almost a year since you've been in the room. What was going on in the last year that something might be streaming?
Yeah, I moved to Toronto to do a film program.
Yes, you did. We did talk about that for a minute. Yeah,
we did.
Norman Jewison.
Yes, the Norman Jewison.
Man, rest in peace.
Yes,
Yeah.
he just passed away. Norman Jewison, famous for Moonstruck, In the Heat of the Night, Rollerball. I'm trying to think what other.
I love how Rollerball comes after In the Heat of the Night.
Well, okay, wait. Thomas Crown Affair.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
The original Thomas Crown Affair.
In the Heat of the Night, I mean, like, seriously, that movie, I think that's the only one of his movies, anyways, that we had to study in high school, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I watched that. My mom was a big Sidney Poitier fan, and she was wanting me to watch a bunch of Sidney Poitier movies, and that was one of the ones I watched early as a child, like being 10, and I loved it for whatever reason, even though I don't know if I fully understood it. But
Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was my
so
introduction to him, and then watching him play like this rough, rugged cop. I'm just like, yes, please, like just the range on that man. But like that's. That I think was my first Poitier movie, but In the Heat of the Night is how, like, you told me that it was Norman Jewison.
Yeah.
I wasn't familiar with him until Ian's like, yeah, I'm at the school, and I look at the school and I'm like, oh, you're at that school. You're at a finishing school for professional filmmaking. I'm a little out of the loop on this one.
I've never seen Moonstruck, which is like one of my blind spots for Norman Jewison, but it's one of those movies in Toronto, and because of the CFC, the program, they replay it a lot. Like, they play it around the city and stuff, and I'm like, never seen it. I will one day, I'm sure. I just like haven't.
yeah, I haven't seen it either.
Like, I know it. So
I was having that conversation with someone the other day, and they're like, you haven't seen this movie and you have a movie podcast? I was like, it is possible. Like,
there's too much.
There's too much.
Too many movies.
Anyways, yeah, so was doing that. So I since then I was kind of workshopping my feature, and that's got greenlit. So I'm going to be filming my first feature probably by fall of this year, maybe. We'll see.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Well done,
Thank you. So that's exciting and stressful. And then the big thing that just came out is Finding Diamonds, which is a show about my dog and I. That's been in the works for the last year, and we shot it really fast because we had to just get it done December to January, and then just went through the edit process, and then it just came out about 2 weeks ago, and it's about my dog Diamond and I traveling Canada, finding unique people and stories in their relationship with their animals that have helped them through trauma and tragedy. So yeah, that's out now on CBC Gem, and it's streaming, and there's 6 episodes, and they're short, 15-minute bite size, and response has been good. It's very heartfelt and cheesy, but people really like it. So
yeah, I'm not ready to cry yet and watch it, which is like every time I've sat down and be like, no, I'm going to cry. I'm not in the right headspace. Like, watching you and that dog travel across the country, and like, I mean, it's such a great premise too, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's pets and their owners and the relationships that save us.
I hope we'll see what happens. I hope there's a season 2, just because, one, it was fun and such a unique experience, and so, like, I don't know, it seems like because I'm living in it, I forget the concept that exactly what you said, like people really are drawn to it, when I'm like, I'm just in it. This is
just my dog and me and a camera.
Yeah, this is work in a sense. And so then I'm like, right, this is hitting the heart in a certain way. And I met some really wonderful, nice people. A couple of them, we still talk and become friends. And it's been really, like, it was a really cool experience. One of those things, like, in the moment I forgot what I was doing, and now I, like, I look back on it, I'm like, oh yeah, it was such a rush thing, but it was really fun. So
That's awesome. What's one most memorable moment with a pet?
I would say there's the person, Kristen, who we met in Halifax. She had her dog Sprout, and they went, they had their own unique story. And we went to a petting zoo with her dog and Diamond and myself and her. And it was just funny just to see the dogs meet other animals. And, the Diamond was like, like thinking goats were like the scariest but most interesting thing and going, ooh, and then the other dog was just like, I want to play with the goats. And eventually she just put her dog in the like fenced area with the goats. Like, there was no workers around, and the dog was just like running around trying to play with the goats, and the goats were like, what the hell is going on here with these, like, this thing that's in here? So it was just funny to see like interactions with different animals and stuff. So that was like a really cool experience, I think, overall.
I'm getting hives just listening to you talk about it.
I know, right?
About all these dogs playing.
I know.
Like, oh god.
This is
Raising their dander all over the place.
Yeah,
it's like your moment in Saw, right? Like being trapped in a room with a bunch of dogs and cats.
Yeah. Now solve this clue.
Oh god, I'm so stuffed up.
I can't see straight.
It's the worst.
I feel that way when someone tells me about, like, they're like, yeah, you get locked in a small closet, and I go, I can't breathe. Just don't tell me that story. I get it.
Suffocation.
I haven't watched the show, Ian,
That's
and
fine.
I'm waiting for the watch party. All right.
Yeah,
so.
no. Dude,
Someone
seriously.
actually told me, because it's basically an hour and a half worth of content.
Yeah.
And I did debate it, but it kind of came out so weirdly. And that's a whole other story. But like it was kind of like, Saturday it's coming out, but they're gonna push it on like the Tuesday, and so it was like this weird thing. So then I was like, oh, when do I promote it? And then there's rules for me promoting it, which I found out existed but didn't exist. So
Rules?
I think
Rules for you promoting it? Like you have to promote it or you don't promote it?
no, like don't promote it because CBC wants the first thing. Like there was things like that's why I wasn't doing a lot on TikTok. And
We want it professionally promoted, not like by some amateur
Yeah.
filmmaker.
I won't get into it on mic, but there's all these things I can't even get into. But that being said, I think
Yeah,
like,
dude, I'm sole proprietor. Don't get us in shit.
but like I wanted to do something, but yeah, it's so easy to like for someone to just like CBC gem it. So at this point, I'm like, they can watch it on their own, and I've seen it too many times at this point where I'm like, I'm good. I don't need to rewatch it again. So
No watch party.
I don't think there'll be a watch
Sounds
party.
like it. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
fine.
15-minute episodes. You guys can watch it.
Me and you
between
can
lunch.
cry together, Alan, and watch it. You
All
for
right.
your hives and me for my emotions.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all right. I mean, like I'm allergic, but I do like dogs. I mean, like they're very nice. They always liked me. They always come up to me and stuff, even though I can't pet them and
You can
stuff
see
like that. They
weakness.
Yeah, that's like cats with me. I'm like kind of allergic to some cats depending on the cat, but I've all my life when I was really allergic to them, they'd always like just find their way on my lap, and I'd be like, okay, I guess I'm doing this.
I think they're
But I loved
attracted to
it.
they're
think
attracted
so.
to the aloofness,
Yeah.
right? They're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, this person isn't like trying to get in my face and pet me. So what's up with them?
Right. Yeah.
What's up with that? No, dude, I'm super happy that all happened. It was really fun to like watch and hear, and then you like posting shit and stuff. And so, dude, glad you're back. Glad that all went out and with a bang and stuff. Alan, give listener like a teaser before we get into it. Tease them what Fascinasian is and what they can expect from it maybe this year.
Well, Fascinasian is a 3-day film festival of mostly shorts, some features that are like not part of a competition or anything like that, but the shorts are competitive. We give out awards for best short, best performance. We do like an emerging filmmaker award, a building bridges award for the film that kind of expresses or embodies, cultural understanding in a way. Like these are all like supported by different organizations that want to, see obviously there's a bit of a other than an artistic and critical film lens, there's also this sort of social equity aside to the festival that's been important for actually like getting funding and stuff like that. So it's been really good to offer that sort of additional platform to spotlight Asian filmmakers.
Asian filmmaking isn't just like that encapsulates Asia. And a lot of people may think on the nose that it's just a specific genre or specific culture or specific background, but it's widespread. Am I not mistaken?
Yeah. And like there's a difference between Asian cinema and the films that Fascinasian programs, right? Because Fascinasian focuses on telling stories of from Asian filmmakers in Canada and in the United States and some other like diasporic communities around the world, right? So it's not Asian cinema so much, there's that bit of a common theme through a lot of the films. A lot of them are in English or like a combination of English and another Asian language. and a lot of them are made by filmmakers who are like us, like are born here, or like, and our stories and the stories that we want to tell. So it's a little bit different from the Asian cinematic landscape because I feel like that is so much more entrenched in their culture, and whereas this is a bit more, maybe it's more accessible in a way.
Contemporary.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet. Now, we're doing this the week before this launches, so wherever you are in Canada, I mean, there's two places that you can be a part of this, right? There's your Calgary festival, and then there's your Winnipeg festival.
That's right. Calgary is May 3rd to 5th, and then Winnipeg is at the end of May 24th to 26th. So, yeah. If you're in any of those cities, you can check it out.
Yeah, you're going to have a good time if you go to it. So there you are. I want to find out what you've been watching, Allan. So tell a listener what you've been watching this last little while.
Okay, well, right now I've been watching these.
What's consuming you?
I've been watching 3 shows consistently, and it's great because these are all shows that have episodes that are coming out like weekly, which I actually have rediscovered a love for because the whole binge watching thing is great for some things, but I kind of like having that weekly show episode to look forward to, right? Yeah, so I've been watching Shogun. That's like the top show right now for me. It's fantastic.
It's so insane.
Yeah, it's so great. And I never read the books or anything, but I mean, like,
it's based off a series?
Yeah, it's based off of a book, a very, very famous book by James Clavell. I did own it at one point. I don't know. It was in my collection, and I started reading it. But anyways, I'm glad I didn't because it's a freaking huge novel. Not that I love reading, but the show is so good, and I'm just enjoying the ride. Just
is it so I haven't deep dived it yet. Everyone keeps telling me to watch it, and I feel like it's gonna be a show once it's done. It's gonna be like Game of Thrones where season 1's done. Everyone's like, that was amazing, watch it, and I'll like binge it once it's all fully done because everyone told me to watch it. But is it like a Game of Thrones like drama soap opera set in ancient
feudal Japan, I believe.
Japan? Yeah.
Okay.
It's not as fantastical as Game of Thrones. Obviously, like Game of Thrones is very like with dragons and monsters and zombies and that sort of thing. But it is a historical period drama. It is political. It's very it pays a lot of respect to the traditional customs and even like the style of Japanese that the actors speak in the show is a more like historical version of Japanese, as not modern Japanese at all. And so supposedly the producers and Hiroyuki Sanda, who's like executive producer and stars in the show, he was very specific about wanting to keep it very as authentic as possible. And so it's beautiful in that sense and not distracting at all. It's very interesting. It engages you.
I just started it. Like I started it when it first came out and then got consumed by a bunch of other things, and getting Shauna to sit down and go into a world of samurai and Shogun and Ronin is hard because she doesn't like to think too much sometimes when we watch television. So I'm like, this will be a me show. So I just started it again in the last 48 hours, and I am just consumed with it is, as to his point, it's very culturally authentic, but the conversations they're having are there's backstabbing, there's usurping. Like it is kind of Game of Thrones in that aspect, but as he says, it's not fanatical, it's not over the top, it's very reserved, it's very badass. Like they don't pull punches. In the second episode that I've seen, like we've already got the blood splattering across the wall, and like a lot of backstabbing. Literally and figuratively.
Yeah, it is brutal. I mean, like in the novels, like that too, right? Like a lot of like decapitation. Japan in that era was pretty brutal. And so it doesn't pull punches in that way, which is it's great. And I also realized I said Hiroyuki Sanada's name wrong. I said Sanda, and it is a Japanese name, but his name is Sanada.
I'm glad you fact checked yourself because I wasn't going to be able to. And you know what? Ken Watanabe's son is in it.
Yeah.
And he was also in Monarch.
Yes.
And
another great show. I just finished that.
Oh, give me more.
Yeah.
Give me more. And the daughter the translator, the one who speaks Portuguese
Yep.
and
Anna Sawai.
yeah, she's also in Monarch too.
Yeah.
They're both killing it. And like watching, I mean, the Ken Watanabe's kid is like a carbon copy of his dad. Like it's really fun to
Yeah, they're
to watch
both
him play.
so great. Yeah, no, I love the new guy too. The way guy they got for the Cosmo.
yeah,
Cosmo Jarvis is his
Something-
name.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know where he's from, but he's awesome.
He's like a second generation Tom Hardy to me. Like that voice he's got when he talks with his English accent, and it's very pronounced and very proper. And he's. Did you catch that? I loved. You'll love this too. There's a scene where they meet for the first time, and there's a translator. And the translator slowly, they remove his dialogue to the point where he's translated for you as the audience. And now they speak to each other in two different languages, but they're having a conversation. And I thought that was in the second episode. And I thought that was absolutely, like, that's the cool shit that you can play with when you're using subtitles and all, because you're and like, I could listen to them speak for hours in that show.
Yeah. They do it well. They manage that part of it well, and I recommend it.
Yeah,
You should
it's
watch
gonna be
it.
a watch at some point. I'm
I
just
think it's also a
backed up.
mini-series, is it not? Or are they going to give it a second season, you think? Do you? Because you're way ahead than I am.
I haven't heard. Like, I am caught up with it. There was a miniseries in the 80s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Richard Chamberlain. I haven't seen it, but evidently it's good as well. I would be interested in checking it out and see how they did it. But I mean, like, nothing. Historically, they have not really captured other cultures very accurately, right? Like, and so I'd be interested in seeing it just to compare.
That
yeah.
timeline, yeah, they made some mistakes.
Yeah. Anyways, you and us, what else am I watching?
Yeah.
The other two things I'm watching are Invincible.
Hell yeah.
And now that
Yes,
it's back
please.
on.
How is the second season? I haven't
great.
started yet.
Yeah, it's great. I mean,
Yeah.
like, it was yes, it's annoying that they took such a huge break in the middle of the season, and everybody's been complaining about that. But I mean, like, whatever.
Are they doing a 2-part second season? Is that?
It's done now, but they did 4 episodes and then another 4 episodes, but all 8 episodes are done now.
Burns.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I've been just watching the new season of X-Men '97.
Very good as well.
Yeah,
I hear
fantastic.
it like it just picks right up where it left off. Like they don't hesitate. They're just, this is what we know you want. We're not going to mess around.
Yeah, no, great. Have you seen it?
Yeah. I'm pretty much caught up. I think there's the latest episode I haven't watched yet, but like it's fantastic. And I was pretty young when the X-Men '97 came out. Like, it was hard to, like, I watched it, but I didn't really understand it.
Neither did I.
Yeah, it was like they're in space now. I'm like, okay. So like just kind of watching this cold, I'm like, I really like this. And it's the animation style. You compare that to Invincible animation style. You're like, holy crap, they know what they're doing here. And the voice acting's very good in both shows, but like X-Men is just, I don't know, something about it, because they got the original Wolverine and stuff. So.
Yeah, a lot of the original voice actors.
Yeah, so it's
came
very,
back.
it's just very good, and there's nostalgia. I keep wondering who's it for, but I think it's for us
I
who
think it's
grew
the
up with
three of
this.
us and-
yeah,
yeah.
who grew up with it.
Yeah. Saturday morning X-Men
Yeah.
97 cartoons. Somebody smarter than me said that it's like it was our soap opera, right?
It was,
like
yeah.
it had these big gusts of over dramatic, sensational ideas that happened between these characters that were already superheroes, but you were obsessed with it because Gambit was throwing cards and Jean Grey was, having a two-way relationship that you didn't understand because you were only 8 at the time.
Well, and they do some really cool fight scenes in at least this version, where they, like, there's a point where I think it's like Gambit jumps on Wolverine's back and powers his claws up, so he's like ripping through like.
I heard about this.
Like, there's really cool ways they use their powers together that's in the show where I'm like, wow, this is really well thought out.
The video game is leaving my mind right now, but it was for Xbox 360. And in the game, you could play as 4 people. Each of you had an X-Men character.
Mm-hmm.
And you could power up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure, but that sounds like they're pulling from the video game world where, like, Human Torch would blast against Cap's shield and then the flames would take out everybody around you, right? That sounds exactly
Right.
like what you could do in this game, which is, I mean, I like when you start universe blending, when you're like, let's take the game, let's take the book, let's take the TV show, let's take the movie and make it all canon. And I think that might be a little bit of an attempt.
Yeah, I feel like whatever they're doing, I think they're just like, where the movies have not been good the last couple.
What are you talking about?
The Dark Phoenix. But like I think the cartoon, they're just like
Oscar
great
Isaac
things.
has something to say about Days of Future Past. That's for sure.
Wait, was he in Days of Future Past? No, he was in the other one.
What was
Apocalypse?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too many multiverses.
No, that's the problem. There's so many, and they kind of got like really like clusterfuck like in between all of them. So yeah, Days of Future Past, they were like, we course corrected everything, but then it hit
No,
the
you
wall
didn't.
again. Yeah.
No,
So-
you didn't. You'll course correct in Deadpool. We
Yeah.
all know it'll figure itself
Yes.
out, right? Comes out in the wash. Out of all three of those, which is the one that you are like, this is my jam right now? Like Invincible, X-Men 97, or Shogun?
Oh, they're all great for their own ways.
No, you
but
must pick
I think,
one, sir.
I think that Shogun is the thing that I'm looking forward to most every week, just because it's a little bit more in depth, and it's like it's like it's a cinematic experience too.
It
It's
is.
very high quality.
It is. They
Like
spared
production
no
value
expense.
is awesome.
And just, I mean, it's not a big, it's a big deal to try to do that period piece, like the authenticity and the armor and the clothing and the background and everything that you're doing. And like I had watched Seven Samurai this week just to be like, I have 3 hours to kill.
Nice.
And just between the two watching them, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many nods to everything that's been done in the last like 50, 60 years of samurai movies in Shogun. And I agree. An episode a week is fun. It makes you have something to look forward to, right?
Yeah.
It separates the mundane from the ordinary, and you're like, okay, cool, Tuesday night Shogun will be back on, or Tuesday night Invincible will be back on, or some shit like that.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's good.
Sweet.
That's a good segue into talking about Kurosawa.
Oh, I know. There's something there. We'll figure it out later. Ian, what'd you watch?
I'll talk about three things.
Yes,
that
you
I've
will.
watched a lot, but 2 shows and 1 movie. But I'll watch. I finished a lot in the last while, but I think also it's just like I evenings I just like end up watching things. I just like veg out at that point because I work throughout the day. So I watched
Preach it, brother.
Ripley on Netflix.
Oh, I heard good things.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Tony
It's-
talked about it last week too. Like
It's like my favorite show of the year. I think it's my favorite thing of the year so
long
far.
form Tom Ripley,
Yes,
right?
it's Tom Ripley, semi like similar to the film Talented Mr. Ripley with Matt Damon and Jude Law, and this is like a 8-episode series with Andrew Scott as Ripley.
Love Andrew Scott.
Shot black and white. It's beautifully shot.
Yeah.
It's all set in Italy, and it's just like apparently I looked this up after, but it's Paul Thomas Anderson's DP, so it's like really just beautiful. Like in my, it's kind of a slow burn. Like I love it. I have only heard positive things. I'm wondering when someone's gonna be like, too slow for me. But Andrew Scott's amazing in it. It's so weird and creepy, and it's just like I think after the first episode, I'm just like, where's this going? Like, how is this gonna like you just want to see someone like con the world in this way, and that's what happens. So, it's very good. The short premise is like Andrew Scott plays essentially a con artist who worms his way into the rich society of certain people, and that's kind of like the
Isn't that
best.
what we all want to do?
Yeah, that's my story of my that's my origin story of how I got here.
Yes,
I was like,
Or you can go watch a Total Eclipse with some rich folks in suburban America.
So
Sorry, that's a joke. That was a reference
That's an
to like
inside joke.
something
Yeah.
else
Yeah. That's
we were
an
talking
earlier
about before
talk.
we
Yeah.
recorded.
That's the fourth thing you watched this week was the Eclipse.
The Eclipse,
That's
yeah.
right. That's right.
highly recommend. The other thing I recently literally just finished, and I'm like, I feel bad because I'm like, how have I done this already? It just came out. But I watched Fallout, and I never played the video game.
The
It's on-
entire thing.
The entire thing.
You
they
binged
don't-
it?
I
That's,
binged
that's
it.
48 hours ago, dude.
I know.
Holy shit.
It just came out. I was up late
Have you
and I
slept?
watched. Yeah. I
mean,
don't know how that
I am
happened.
definitely going to watch that show.
Yeah.
I don't know how I did this.
But I'm going to give myself some time.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think it's just one of those things like, I hit a point where it's like 8 o'clock and I'm done work and I'll just like turn on a thing and I'll end up like watching 4 episodes and then it's midnight and I'll go to bed, and it's like 8, like something happens, and I'm like, and I walk my dog between, I'll eat dinner, but like, I was just like, wait, how did I burn through this so much? And the episodes are about 50 minutes each, so they're not like insane, so, but like they're not like an hour 10 or hour 30 or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
But I'm assuming you liked it.
Yes. Well,
No
like I know nothing about the video game. I love the actors in it.
You know more than I know. Then.
Okay, yeah. Well, like I started like after I finished, I was like Googling images and stuff. 'Cause I was curious how close it is to the video game.
I've played a couple.
Okay.
I played a couple, and they do definitely have like a feel.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in, and the trailer looks amazing, and looks like they capture that feel.
Well, it's funny. I kept getting confused with the trailer of Fallout and Borderlands, and I was like, which thing am I watching again? So because they're very like they were both kind of like these very like bright color. Movie show Borderlands a movie, but anyways, I watched it, and it's great. I had zero idea of what I was going to watch. I had no idea Jonathan Nolan was involved in this.
Yeah, it's his baby.
I didn't know, and that made me so excited after the first episode. I was like, oh, I'm going to finish this. And that's why it's great. Great cast, really high production value, like Shogun in that sense, where I'm like, wow, they really put money behind this thing. So, I think it's going to be one of Amazon Prime's flagship with the boys. I think it's going to end up becoming one of those shows. I haven't read about reviews so far. But
everybody loves it.
Yeah.
And say that it's the cleanest representation of a video game to date.
That probably is true. It's funny.
It's a big compliment.
Yeah.
That genre has had some difficulty.
Of course, yeah. Well, Sonic, come on.
I was going to say...
it's also had some success.
It has.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, Mario, right?
Right, yeah.
Arcane.
Arcane, yeah.
Jesus Christ, beautiful. But then you've also got Super Mario Original 1.0.
Right.
Right? Like,
we
as much as it's a cult classic and I will watch it, it is a hot mess.
We take 6 steps back and then 1 step forward.
Yeah.
Totally. So I'm excited for more people to watch it so I can talk about it, because I don't understand certain things that I want to ask about. So it's great. Like even the gameplay, like I'm like, how does this game work within the film or in the show now? So like, what is the concept and the storyline of the game? So
did they do anything like Gran Turismo where like you feel you went from like you all of a sudden it's first player shooter mode and you're running like the character's view is like a video game?
No, but I did get a couple of Last of Us vibes.
Okay.
Just
end of the world dystopian shit.
Well, maybe some episodes I was like, I could see this as a video game, like certain episodes. So but that could have been just me. I could be wrong about that because I don't even know Last of Us that well as a video game. I'm not a gamer, so but otherwise, that being said, very good, highly recommend. Well,
here, let me see if now that you have watched it all, because I have been told that, and then you can tell me because you've played the games. So after World War II, when the nuke was invented, the world became more nuclear. Is that the understanding of like gadgets?
Ish,
and
yeah.
Like your fridge was powered by a mini nuke, and like the car might be powered by nukes. Like the world was nuclear friendly instead of nuclear fear. And then there was a war that eventually happened, which might be World War III, if I'm not mistaken, that the planet was so nuclear powered at that point that it all went up. Is that a good maybe thing for someone out there who's clueless like me?
Yeah, I mean it's much more based in fantasy, I think, than that.
Okay.
But essentially, yeah, it's been a nuclear fallout, nuclear war, like a nuclear fallout type of apocalyptic future. But it also has this sense of like nostalgia, because the things that have survived, a lot of them are like, say, analog, right? Like old music and like that sort of thing, right? So there's this combination,
a rotary phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's nostalgia about this stuff that's really old, but then also stuff that's kind of new or salvageable, and then people obviously live in these bunkers that are the fallout shelters, right? And then there's mutants because of radiation. There's mutated animals, and
noseless Walton Goggins.
Yeah, exactly.
Also
and
invincible.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, right. Invincible. And then there's different factions that have arisen in society
From the nuclear ash.
Yeah, exactly. So I could see it being a really fascinating show, but I mean, obviously, it's taken until now for it to be able to look good.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And like you wait for certain games, because Unreal Engine making the video game, you could really step on the world that has been made for the gamer. When you try to take it and put it on screen, you could, and I mean, baked in audience already. So you've got some fears of like, what do we do? What don't we do? And if you're saying it's very Last of Us has won a fuck ton of awards.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so like that's something that you want to emulate in your game storytelling.
Yep.
I guess would be
I
someone who hasn't seen or played the game. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah. I feel like right now we're on a good arc of about good game to adaptations to like live action
What was
adaptations.
the one with the Assassin's Creed? That was just a flop.
Yeah, I never watched it with
Michael Fassbender.
Michael Fassbender.
Yeah, that one did not. And I mean, Sony, you make video games. Why is this so hard for you?
Because they don't make very good movies.
I did like Gran Turismo.
Touche.
Yeah,
I did. I like Gran Turismo.
it's yeah.
Oh man, did you play it?
Yeah.
Okay, you'll love it because the corner shots on the track
Uh-huh.
go up to the video game angle
Yeah.
and then go back into the car.
Oh, okay.
It's also
And-
based on a true story, which
Yeah.
is kind of insane.
Do you know that? Like
Do you know what it's about?
Yeah, I know. It's like about a kid basically who is really good at playing Gran Turismo,
Yep.
and he gets scouted and hired to be an actual race car driver.
Which is like the story of like the
That
best
dreams are
story.
made
yeah,
of?
like truly. That's what I think. I'm like, how is this real? It's like real.
Isn't that the same story as like Ender's Game
Yeah,
and
100%.
Ready Player One.
Ready
too?
Player One?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And it's real, this one. And I'm like, what? This was like a real contest?
It's reverse Avatar. Like you go from being an avatar to being a real
Yeah,
driver.
Totally.
No, and I mean, Bloomkamp, I think me and Charles both said that I think he did that because he wants to start making his movies again. So he really gave Sony some gold in
Yeah.
that movie. Like it is a really good looking, fun movie that when you find out that the guy who this movie's about is the actual stunt driver in the movie in the stunt scenes driving the track. So the dude whose dream came to life gets to be his own stuntman. Like it's very meta in a lot of ways.
That's cool.
And
All right,
like-
I'll check it out.
You hate Orlando Bloom. You absolutely, he's such a shit heel that you love to hate him. And there's certain things they left in on his character that you're just like, thank you, because it just solidified like he's such a snake. Okay, so is that 3?
Final thing is just Civil War. It just came
Yeah.
out.
You like crushing things the day of within 48 hours.
I'm
it
so
seems.
scared of TikTok.
Ruining
I'm
shit?
so scared of like online, like people like to message me.
And tell you what.
Yeah,
they
they'll
like to spoil movies.
You know,
for
like people will message me, "Hey, I just watched this. Have you seen it?"
what kind of fucking people are you friends
I
with?
don't know. They just like people like so. That's why I don't even post when I'm going to see things. Like I don't like post the poster being like
Look
just
what
came
that
out of this, you know.
defeated.
Well, then people also have like said like don't tell me anything, so I just like keep it to myself and I'll go by myself and
Come
yeah.
here and spoil it for the
I know, right?
masses. Do it.
But I keep pretty vague. But Civil War is Alex Garland. Did I say it right?
Alex Garland.
Garland.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I was
Sorry.
like, my brain was like going like, what?
Garland,
There's so many- yeah,
like the Christmas
Garland.
decorations.
Yeah.
I
great.
think my brain was like, is that Judy Garland? Wait,
Judy Garland.
No.
Any relation?
but Alex Garland.
Great aunt, perhaps.
Hey, Hollywood nepotism. I'm not
I
surprised.
know. That's what
Wouldn't
I
be
was like.
surprised.
That's where my brain was like, is that right? I'm like, no, that's right. Alec
that's
Garland's fourth film, and I don't want to spoil it, but like it's I liked it. It's good. It's very truthful. If you guys have seen the trailer of like a possible future one day, but yeah, it's gonna be one that I'm really curious. It's like I'm curious. People, the conversation after I went to see it with a friend and. We ended up chatting for like an hour after.
Yeah, what did you talk
it.
about after?
Well, just like how, like how it was even made in comparisons to his last films and stuff. Because he's kind of sci-fi guy. He did Ex Machina, Annihilation. Men was like kind of a horror.
Men is fantastic.
It's fantastic.
I
It's
love
it's
Men.
fucking weird, but like, but it's and then this one's a little more set in the real world, but in a really hyper insane crazy version of the real world. So.
Is it really that crazy?
No, that's kind of.
I feel the crazy's right around the corner.
But that's the interesting part about it. So, and, the one log line of it is just a civil war is broken out in the U.S. and that's kind of like what the movie's about, and we follow people exploring it. So,
Yeah.
and it's a great cast. Kirsten Dunst,
and husband Jesse Plemons.
Jesse Plemons is in it. Can't think of it. Kaylee Spain, who Spainy. Anyways, she's in Priscilla. She was Priscilla in Priscilla, and
So,
yeah.
Listener can go backwards at this point because right now out is our version of Civil War. Me, Martin, and Jimmy decided we're just going to use the trailer and base a whole debate off of what you see in the trailer. And if we could do it, we're like the vice journalists in this scenario. And we argued a vehicle, we argued how we would get the footage to the White House. Like we used whatever plot points there were in the trailer. I know we're wrong. At this point, I know we're wrong because I haven't seen the movie yet. But like, is it? Do you come out of it like? Did he make it for America or did he make it for the world? Because that's two different kind of ways you could end a movie like that.
I think it's
what state wins, what new faction wins. What are you telling the world?
I think it's
no one wins.
Without
or does no one? Exactly. Is it a zero-sum game?
I think what
we
it
got
does.
the apocalyptic one in the corner over here.
Remember Don't Look Up? That film. It's trying. Well, I don't like that film, but that film.
That did piss you off. I remember
it's doing what that film tried to do, and that's kind of the best way, which is just, like, it's telling a story about a version of America without being like, watch out, guys, and wave your hands in the air. It's not doing that. Which I appreciated. But again, it's one I'm still soaking in. I'm still thinking about.
Still wet.
It's like 2 days later, and I'm still like, wow, that was really.
Taste that still.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, I'm excited for people to watch it and talk about it, and thank God there's someone making original things.
Oh God. Yeah, I what's his face who won for the writer at the Oscars who wrote
this last year.
This past, the one guy, he wrote the one
adapted screenplay,
American
Fiction.
Yeah, American Fiction.
Oh yes, yeah.
He won for best adapted screenplay.
Yeah, Cord.
Yeah,
Cord.
I know.
What's his last
I
name?
can't think of his name right now. But yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah,
but no, great.
His comment.
Yeah,
let's make 10.
Instead of $100 million film, why don't we make $10 million films?
I was like, yes, please.
Yeah.
Give me original shit. Give me shit that's not. I don't want a universe anymore.
So,
I'm done building universes.
Same,
I want to be affected.
Yep. And we're seeing it slowly, but
Oh my God, that's another interesting topic. Actually, maybe not for this podcast, but for like another episode. Because I was just actually thinking
universes. I'm down.
Because we're so spoiled for choice. Well, there's so much content out there. We were just talking about this. There's so much content out there, and we were looking. I was doing some research about about we're going to be talking about Asian film, and so there's been waves of Asian film coming up, Hong Kong in the 70s and 80s, and Korean film now. I mean, in the past 20 years, and even Japanese film, starting from Kurosawa in the 50s, right? People there's periods of time where these sort of booms happen, and then we get inundated with the content becomes more and more, right?
Yep.
And now, because the entry level to creating a film is so low, right? Lower historically than it's ever been. Anybody can make a film.
It's closer to getting one made now than before. It might not be a blockbuster, but tools,
exactly. It's kind of watered down the quality, to be honest.
Yes, it has.
Right. So then, there used to be the gatekeepers of movies used to be so much bigger, like these giant studios, and now I feel like it's changed, but it hasn't. Because the production value, if you're going to get anything like of good production value, it's going to still come from a big studio. Like Civil War, obviously A24 is blowing up. And
it's also this weekend, it's their most successful movie ever made now. It beat.
Oh, really?
It beat the one with Joaquin Phoenix.
It
beat Hereditary. Hereditary was its big one.
Oh,
so
okay.
its opening weekend surpassed Hereditary's take. Anyways, go on. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's all right. It was just I'm just trying to making a statement on how it's still these giant studios and big budget movies that are still raking in the actual views, and smaller films like the ones like indie films that are at film have to rely on festivals basically.
They do
to be able to be seen.
I think that I said this before when we talked about what would we do if we ever came back to the movies during COVID, right? Because we were like, where's the movie theaters? That was my priority. I want to go back to church. And I said, you know what you should do with all that ad space? You should start showing short films from Canadian filmmakers. You should start showing short films from people in those towns. You should be promoting people who are making great 7-minute movies so that when they do get a full feature and a big budget, they've been seen, they've been experienced, they've been talked about, and then you can be like, hey, go check. Nobody gives two fucks about a car ad right before a movie. None of us are walking out of the theater being like, I want that Buick Rendezvous. We're there to be experiencing films of different aspects, cultures, topics, stories, whatever, what have you, and you're throwing all this fast food shit at me. and it's for 25 fucking minutes. Like you could show 6 short films in the amount of time, and then have more people come back to your theater and watch short films, and then you make more money on popcorn, and everybody fucking wins. And I still don't understand why that space is reserved for commerce.
I know we're slightly off topic, but like,
No, we're not.
that particular thing, it's funny because I the Strong Son, my 3-minute short, that film, it came out in 2020. I had a distributor, and then I occasionally look at Letterboxd to be like, oh, if anyone, because it was playing certain random places and stuff. And then this was a while back, but I looked at it and someone was like, oh, I saw this before, this played before No Time to Die, and at the Cineplex or something. And I was like, what? And so I reached out to my distributor. I'm like, did you guys make a deal with Cineplex or something? Like, which theater did this play at? Like, I think it's Toronto, this person that left a review, but it's playing before features? That's awesome. I'm like, that's great. I just had no idea. And they're like, that's not us. So I don't know. Or maybe if it is us, someone's doing it on their own. I'm like, I'm not complaining. I don't care if I don't get money for this. But I'm just happy like they're doing this before like a James Bond movie now. So they're showing my 3-minute film. I'm like,
but that's
great.
what it should be. It should be this up-and-comer against this big name, and then you're getting to see both. And like, if we see it and then someone starts reviewing that stuff being like, this is a really great short, like, thank you for entertaining me for 5 minutes. I mean, it's just a win-win, but hey, what do I know?
The devil advocate in me goes, that time before a movie,
It's reserved for McDonald's.
It's reserved for certain times of getting there late, for fucking around still, for turning off your phone. It's also like, I find personally, because a lot of film festivals will sometimes play a short film before a feature, and I find sometimes my brain goes, oh my god, too much story all at once. Like I'm just getting too many things like at me where I'm like, I'm here for specifically this one film. I don't really want the treat before it. But that being said, I would love it. Like obviously, I'm saying this as someone who like makes films, so I'm like, yeah. But I see both positives and negatives on both sides.
It's a conversation.
Yeah,
I'll bring this back into the looking glass that we're under today. I recently saw my favorite wrestling match of the year, even though WrestleMania? No, even though WrestleMania took place last weekend, I got to go see Godzilla vs. Kong.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I watched Kong get suplexed onto a pyramid in Egypt, and it's fucking awesome.
Wait. You watched Godzilla vs. Kong or Godzilla X Kong?
Sorry.
You have to
Godzilla X Kong. Went and saw it in the theater. Me and Mark went to go see it, and it's just fun. It is just so much fun. Finally they get it. 80% monster, 20% human. That's what we're coming to the theater for. We're not here for the story, although it's the story of the little girl from Kong Island. It's still her story.
Oh, nice.
And it's coming to more of an end with her relationship with Kong. But you've got Hollow Earth, you've got upside down fights, you've got people coming in each other's backyards, like Kong's coming up, Godzilla's going down. All the stuff from Monarch series is tied into it.
It's the Monsterverse.
It's the Monsterverse, essentially.
Okay,
yeah, really, it is. Like,
I've heard mixed things. Like
you get Mothra in it. I'm going to spoil it for you. You get Kong. You get Godzilla. You get Diddy Kong. I'm not even going to tell you how that plays out.
That's in the trailer.
Diddy Kong.
It's in the trailer.
I love
that
it.
one. Yeah,
it's just over the top, stupid fun.
Diddy Kong racing.
Right? We're practically almost in a go-kart at some points in this movie. Like, it gets right into the story right quick. I guess like any monster movie, like there's a scene where they actually have to extract a tooth from Kong. Kong's got a rotten tooth, and it's a very like light moment in the movie. And it's this giant floating construction piece of equipment that drops down chain hoists and ties steel cable around the tooth, and then they put the thrusters on, and it shoots out and pulls his tooth out. And then they put in this titanium one made from like the space shuttle's outer shell, and then that totally like that's foreshadowing a lot because that tooth comes back way later in the show.
Wow.
But you don't even get points where there's anybody talking. It's just monsters interacting, and the facial recognition and the understanding. Sometimes the three of them on screen is you don't need any dialogue. They're talking through like blowing stuff up and fighting with each other and moments. And like I said, like the Monarch show was so good for developing this part of the story where like Godzilla 2014 happens and then it just keeps happening, but like nobody's ever experienced what happened after Godzilla Day 1, right? Godzilla -1 was fantastic.
Amazing.
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh
Very
my God.
good. Very good.
The CGI off the charts, deserves every award that they were given.
Yeah, they were so cute.
They were adorable.
They were so cute at the Oscars with their little toys.
Right? like gold Godzilla for a gold Oscar,
Yeah.
black Godzilla, Godzilla with pink, and you were like, what's that from? And then you see the movie and you're like, Godzilla gets pink. It's fucking amazing. But this year for Godzilla has been really good. You get how Godzilla came to be, and now you're like, we've got a MonsterVerse coming. And there's and they show you like there's portals all over the world that they can't close. And bigger monsters come out at certain points. When the tag team happens, you're just like, screw you, Rockers. Screw you to Generation X. The best tag team in the world is X and Kong and Godzilla. And yeah, go watch it. It's just fun.
All right. Well, I'll try to. I'll add that to my list.
That's the big one. And like I closed Monarch before.
Should I
so
see?
like
Should I see -1 before seeing Godzilla versus X Kong?
I really like -1, which is why I haven't seen.
There's a
Godzilla
human
X
story
Kong.
in -1 that's really awesome. It's the longest of all the Godzillas. But how Godzilla comes to be, I'm a huge fan of the Trinity tests and the nuclear war stuff. So they really don't like all of the other ones that have been like, is this how Godzilla kind of came to be? They confirm it in this. It's a story of a Japanese suicide pilot putting his plane down on an island, avoiding a fight, and then running into Godzilla. That's really where
It's a period piece.
And it's a period piece too. It's right after World War II, and it's World War II in Japan.
Yeah.
So it's rebuilding. It's him like meeting Godzilla in the middle of the war, and then Godzilla never really being out of his life. He's been outrunning Godzilla for so long that he finally has to face Godzilla. And inside facing Godzilla, he also faces issues with like abandonment and family. Like there's a whole human element to the movie that I was just like, I didn't expect this, but I liked it.
Mm-hmm. No, it actually I do my top 10 list every year, but
Yes, you do.
it was on my top 10 list for sure.
But yeah, no, and I mean, like it pays homage to all the Godzillas before it. Gets the big like widescreen shot where like he's just kind of like very basic and robotic, like a throwback to the original stop motion, and then cuts right back into like this beautiful 2024 Unreal Engine CGI, but then cuts back to it again, and you're just like, yeah, you're getting the best of both worlds. And for just a giant lizard born out of nuclear addiction, it shouldn't be this fun, but anyway, it is. So yeah, go see that. And I think like I'm just watching other shit like Survivor. I'm super addicted to Survivor right now.
I heard it's very good this season.
Oh, they're doing this. So this new thing that they're doing, if you're a big Survivor fan, I think this is a cool aspect. When they get to the merge challenge, they merge, but then they always compete as two separate teams. So every time they go to immunity, there's actually two teams competing for immunity and two teams competing for tribal.
Oh, weird.
And reward or whatever. So they've merged. They had a merge feast. The winners of that challenge, because they were broken into two teams, got to go have the merge feast. Guess what the losers got? Nothing. But now they're in the same camp. So they live as one, but they compete as two.
Cool.
And
That's actually very intriguing.
It's very interesting because, and it's always schoolyard pick, right? Pick a rock color out of a bag. Oh, I'm on the orange team. Shit. And like one challenge, it was like the smallest girl and all the big dudes.
Wow.
Like they just mowed through it. So like even if you do merge and become one team now, you still have issues with like tribal alliances.
Yeah, it sounds like camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like junior high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like my childhood all over again. So yeah, just a lot of reality television, but that was the last good like besides rewatching and getting prepped for this episode, which at this point, listener, here you go. You got like 7 different things that you should go check out. All of them recommended by true cinephiles, and you can put a stamp on that. So let's get into it. Let's open the floor here.
Floor is open.
So I think the best place, like you've mentioned it already as we were talking about this, but the waves of Asian cinema over the years, they come and then they get inundated with shit stuff that kind of blinds you out to it because it was in the 50s and it was in the 60s and then it was in the 70s. But like right now we're in a huge resurgence of Asian storytelling. And I think the best place to kind of start with that in the last little bit is like, what's been your favorite movie, sci-fi, drama, rom-com, what have you, out of this resurgence that we're experiencing right now? Ian, let's start with you.
I would say Parasite. Which
That one took the world by storm.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons for that film to. I think one on an Oscar level, it was mind blowing. I started like getting so excited watching the Oscars that year, and like I'm like, did this actually happen? Like
And it was a double whammy, right?
It was a double whammy: best foreign film, best picture,
Yeah.
best director. Like it took over, and I think it was one of those things where we had a director. Can I say it right? Bong
Joon-ho.
There you go. Sorry,
I think
my
we're right.
my dyslexia wants to say it differently.
Yep,
But
no,
yes,
we got it right.
Bong Joon-ho. It's that thing where I have to slow it down to say it. But I think like he's proven himself over the years. There was something about such good storytelling. Not only like well shot, well made. This is like perfect storytelling on so many levels. Also, we're at least in the last like 2 years, we've been in like a phase of eat the rich films.
Yeah.
And this was
And
like,
boy, do they taste good.
yeah, and I think this is like the one that like just surpassed, like it just went full hard into eat the rich, like compared to like Knives Out and all these other ones, like
Triangle of Sadness.
Triangle of Sadness. Like I think this one was the
That was
one
mind-blowing.
that stood out, and I think it does it the best. But I think it's just like a really perfect storytelling film. I don't know why. It just hit those points, and it pays off everything you see in the beginning, and it does it so well. So yeah, that'd be my choice.
I think really good filmmakers are also keen observers of society, right?
Yeah.
And so that's definitely a statement on Korean culture and society in this current period, right? And we're talking about these waves. So the Korean wave basically started when South Korea was freed, from
Like
from
mid-50s,
communism,
right? Yeah.
right? And then they started to develop their own, like, kind of be a more democratic society, a more free society, have more influence from
Let's
Western
have
culture.
conversations and talk about art. Yeah.
And just Korean film in general has just become such
It's a monster now.
all Korean culture has been, they're going through this crazy not a renaissance, I would say, just a crazy wave, like a crazy boom in popularity with music and television, K-dramas, and and then movies
K-pop,
as well.
Right? Like everything.
K-pop,
Reality
K-dramas,
TV,
reality
Physical
TV.
100. It's my favorite new show.
Oh, it's so good. It was Singles Inferno.
Singles Inferno.
Such a good. We could actually have a whole episode on
I
Singles
agree.
Inferno, comparing dating shows.
Physical 100. Like Shauna watched it because she
I
loves.
fucking love that movie.
I was gripped, man. Like I'd come in the room and I'd be like, "All right, who's going down now? Who's hanging?" And like the first one where they all got lifted up and they had to hang there, and it was like, "This is the pre-challenge. This isn't actually the
season
challenge."
2 is even crazier.
I haven't started it yet, but I'm gonna.
Now what? Like, it's such a great, because like Parasite is about classism essentially at its core, right? And like the downstairs people wanting to live with the upstairs people, but it's also got like this horror element too. Like as soon as you see him pop up, I'm just like, what is going on in this movie? And it just pulls you in. But like, it is there something to be said of, like, is Korea, like, because I don't know, is Korea obsessed with the rich? Is that something that's in their culture that's being exposed to on the screen, or is that just a story of eating the rich in general? Like, is it part of the diaspora, or is it just part of a conversation?
Oh no, it's definitely part of a conversation. I think that since the turn of South Korea into to more like Western style democracy and capitalism, I mean, there's been obviously like a huge divergence of classes and stuff like that, which you don't necessarily get as much in a communist, or you do, but it's like very repressed, right?
Yeah.
You can't talk about it. But this is definitely a statement on, like, obviously, like how it's affected Korean society. Yet, and it's still, I would say, pretty prevalent in a lot of these countries that have developed very quickly. In a shorter period of time, like historically, that there's still this sense of desperation in sort of the underbelly or the undertones of the society, right? To do whatever it takes to survive. The survival mentality. And not that isn't prevalent everywhere, but you see it very plainly in Korean culture because everything is very... Or maybe it's even just more shocking in Korean culture because everything is very, like, put on very well, right? Like, they're very concerned with how they appear in public, right? Fashion and etiquette and that sort of thing is very important to Koreans. It's similar to Japanese.
It's your
as well.
reputation. There's honor, there's respect, there's just an older way of thinking.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
been corrupted.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, so that movie particularly, I feel like was the reason why it was so cringy and so tense is because they're just willing to go there and put themselves in that danger and in that kind of precarious situation, and maybe that's cultural, but we don't necessarily. I don't know if we see the same type of desperation here that isn't like, I don't know, made into something more
Amplified?
fiction,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. I get
Whereas
what you're
there was
saying.
like felt real, like the
it
stakes
feels-
for them were very real.
I think I owe so much to Parasite because in his speech he says, "Don't let subtitles scare you" when he wins. And I used to be scared of subtitles. I really was. Then meeting Shauna, she's obsessed with subtitles no matter what we're watching because you want to get all the dialogue, you want to understand it all. But now I'm more drawn into, if something is in another language, I want to watch it more because I will watch it. You can't look away. You can't miss anything.
Yeah.
And in this, like you're reading the bottom of the screen and what you're watching in your brain. It was fucking masterful. That's why it's an Oscar-winning movie. What was yours? What was one that just popped up for you in the last little while that's been part of this new resurgence? And there's so many genres. That's the great thing. It's not just genre specific. You've got rom-com. You've got Marvel. You've got sci-fi, right? Like you've got remakes, like Three Body Problem right now.
Yeah.
Is killing it because it's this long beloved Japanese graphic novel, if I'm not mistaken.
Chinese, I believe.
Chinese? Is it Chinese?
Yeah.
Okay. But
Based
like
on Chinese book and TV show.
there's just so many different things. So what was it kind of for you?
Well, I mean, Three Body Problem is really good.
Okay. Let's look at that.
The Netflix show is good. I haven't seen the Chinese show, but it makes me want to see the Chinese show because it's supposedly like fantastic as well and award winning and that sort of thing. I guess the problem is access, right?
Yeah.
Just be able to get to be exposed to that because we're basically just fed whatever the streamers want to feed us.
Whatever the algorithm tells you.
Yeah, exactly. But there's all this crazy stuff out there that you can't get access to. I don't know. Like recently, I haven't watched a lot of Asian cinema because I've been focusing a lot on watching movies for programming for Fascinasian, which is actually there's a surprising amount of like good Asian film. I shouldn't say Asian films. Films by Asian filmmakers, not from Asia, right?
Yeah. From Canada, from Ireland, from India, wherever.
Yeah,
right?
telling different stories. Yeah. So I'll just go into like some of the films that we're showing at the festival.
Please do.
One of them is called Rue, and it's based on a Governor General's award-winning novel by Kim Tran. And I'm probably getting her last name wrong, but it's about a Vietnamese family who comes over and settles in Quebec. Kind of autobiographical. Fantastic film. Beautifully shot. Kind of like one of these more a little bit slower paced, contemplative, but just very well done. Like I was very impressed with how it looked and how it affected you as a sort of like it's almost like you're an observer into these people's lives, and sort of like their struggles, and trying to connect the pieces of their past with how they're feeling in the moment, and trying to like integrate into Canadian culture. And it's beautiful. It's just a beautiful movie. And so that's our opening night film. We're hoping to get do a Zoom Q&A with a couple of the filmmakers. But yeah, that's Rue, and our opening night film.
I can't imagine prepping for a film festival, like the amount of things that you want to watch versus the things where you're like, I should watch this. What should we, shouldn't we? Like making a programming for a film festival is, I would imagine, more daunting than it is enjoyable.
Do you have a selection people to go to like weed them out and then you watch like the favorites?
We have a committee.
Yeah.
Yeah. But right now our committee is pretty small, so we had over 170 short film submissions.
Wow.
Anything ranging from like 3 minutes to like 40 minutes
Jeez.
max, and so we had to.
Is that your cutoff or is that the industry cutoff?
Well, that's kind of like our cutoff. Yeah, that's our cutoff because we wanted to open it up to like slightly longer films. There's not a lot of films that are between half an hour to 40 minutes, like a handful. Most short films are reasonably within 5 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
And we had to basically split all those up, kind of go through them, split them up between like the 6 committee members to kind of like go through first to kind of say like, okay, is this going to be like, would this be your at least in your, to kind of give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down in terms of like quality, is it, just initially, right?
Yeah.
And then we would group them and then go through them again with more people and actually try to give assessments, right? And to like be able to rank them. And then we get down to like a short list of like, I don't know, the top 30 films or 40 films or whatever. And then we try to figure out the program from there. But then when it comes to feature films, a lot of that we do the research on and see what is out there, what is being selected for other festivals. Sometimes it's on distributor lists and seeing what distributors are putting out or advertising.
It sounds like you cast a wide net.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, to be honest. It's a lot of freaking work. And a lot of,
Tell us how you feel.
It is enjoyable work, though, because you're watching movies.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Good
it's
or
just,
bad.
What, are you watching movies? Like, is it 10 movies and you're like, I love this. This is awesome. And you're just like going along for the ride. Or are you watching movies? Like when you're actively watching versus just watching for the sake of entertainment, like looking at a movie versus watching a movie, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I guess it could be a little tiresome, right? Because now you're not being in the story. You're watching for mechanics. You're watching for how things are done. You're maybe catching something like there could be countless reasons.
Well, I'm sure it's the same when you're like watching a movie for the sake of reviewing. Like if you're like, or for the sake of talking about it on a podcast, right? Like there's a certain element of enjoyment because you're like, okay, you're getting into the story. If it's a good movie, you're getting into the story. But if it's not a good movie, then you're just like, oh, this is work.
Yeah.
This is hard.
The next hour and a half is going to be tough.
I heard this from a Sundance Shorts programmer, and he was like the main guy. I can't remember his name. I think it's Mike or Matt. Anyways, he was on a podcast or something, and he was saying how he's like, the one thing I get asked always is like, do we watch all the shorts? And I go, this is my full-time job. Yes, I watch everything. If I like, we have multiple people, but anything he's like, I'll watch it because that's my job. I get paid to do this, and that's don't get me wrong. I've seen some like bad stuff, but like, but that's part of it. Like you have to like sift through, and that's what I get paid to do, And I'm like, yeah, let's say, man, I like that honesty. And I guess he's right. He gets paid to watch a bunch of films, like a bunch of shorts, and it's a lot of goddamn work. And I can't imagine doing it. It's hard. Like, the times I've had to do it. So yeah.
I think the one that really has sucked me in the last while, and it's recent, was Beef.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Beef just felt like an ongoing anxiety attack. But Beef was really interesting to watch from a non-Asian person's perspective of seeing the cultures of like the brothers' relationship and how family works on the one side, and then the other side of the marriage and having everything together for the the overbearing parent, if you will, which is fun because it's like, okay, cool, this is how I get there. So give that to me. Give me why your culture gets angry at your parents. Give me why your culture has family squabbles. Like this is where I'll bond. This is where I'll see it and get obsessed with it and then learn from the other side.
Yeah, because there's commonalities.
There's a commonality there.
Yeah.
I'm not you, but I understand what that feels like. Yeah. And I think that's the beauty in some of these stories is that it's just, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just Asian people experience the same thing as white people, as Ukrainian people, as black people, right? It's just made from the culture, the ideas, the things that go into an everyday life are there, and you might not understand them, but you'll get along with them.
It's no longer tokenism.
Yes,
right. Like we're past it now. We're past. I think Kim's Convenience was probably the last show that will overtly
make
On the
make those
nose.
yeah
On the
exactly
nose,
make
yeah.
use
Yeah.
those stereotypes to entertain people.
Yeah.
Because and Kim's
It's
Convenience is
tired.
fantastic, but I think new audiences savvy modern audiences want to see stuff like beef, where yes
Yeah.
they're Asian, but they're not. That's not
That's not what it's about.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's not a plot point.
The short that's playing Fascination this year that I made, my son went quiet when I was making it. So it's about a father and son. They see a shadow on the wall and they think it's the
It's
the
kind
mom.
of played off of Strong Son, is it not?
Yeah,
Like,
in a
you're
sense,
kind
like
of-
it's another.
Are you
like,
universe
father,
building
son.
over there?
I'm universe building. I call it the Sad Dad.
Sad dad genre.
The Sad Dad series. I sincerely do. I have like 5 movies now in this whatever that I made.
Hey, you know what you know.
Yeah, exactly. But the dad wears a turban, the son doesn't. And when we were making the movie, I had we met up with our props guy, and there's a lot of scenes at the meeting, and he's like, "So what? In the script, there's a lot of food scenes. What were you thinking? Like curry and stuff?" And he's like, "This white guy," and I go, "No, man, just sandwiches. Like just fucking eggs and toast and chicken, like you do just basic fucking meals, man.
Yeah.
Like nothing Indian.
Well,
That's not what we ate. Just because he's wearing, and, I started laughing so much because I get it, but I'm also like, no, man, just basic food. Just
Did you know?
fucking-
Okay, did you know in China there's this trend now of like white people food or Western? They're like Western
awesome.
diet
That's awesome.
is this trend in China where basically they eat super plain bland food because it's healthy. It's like,
That's
oh, we're gonna eat
funny.
raw vegetables. Oh, boiled eggs. This is like the new trend in
That's
China now
very
of eating
funny.
these meals because it's healthy, but it's like because it's Western food.
Well, I watched, like I said, I watched some stuff to get I see everything now. I watch everything. When I started the show, I will fully admit that I was tentpole, that I was my childhood cinema, and I was very unexposed to a lot of things. And then just slowly saying that you have a movie podcast, you should probably watch some shit. I hadn't seen Seven Samurai since, I don't know, maybe in my early 20s. Because it's cool to watch a samurai movie.
Same.
But then I watched it the other day, and I only got an hour and a half through it. And this is funny because I was making this decision. You were here. I was like, is it Rashomon,
Rashomon.
or Seven Samurai? I was like, which one should I do?
I can tell you which one.
And I know I should have done Rashomon, but I did Seven Samurai, and I didn't look at the running times on each. I was
Yeah.
just like, I'll do Seven Samurai, and I was like, I fucking should have done Rashomon because it's an hour and 28 minutes versus 3 hours and
3:20, I
17
think.
minutes.
Yeah.
I think I got an hour and a half through, and I was like, oh my God, George Lucas, when you say you're inspired by Akira Kurosawa, you mean you took from Akira Kurosawa? Because watching the sword fight, I was like, that's Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. This is Han, this is Leia, this is Chewie, this is 3PO. Him assembling the team. The cutest mannerism is he's always rubbing his head trying to figure things out when you first when you first meet him, and he dresses up as a monk I'm like, that's putting on a stormtrooper outfit. It's all here. It's all here. And I'm like, it is so insane to now look at film being like, oh, that's where a lot of these people got these from. Like the John Wick fight scenes or the old classic Hong Kong Jackie Chan fight scenes that are just
Ironically, a lot of those early movies, those Asian movies, took a lot of influence from Western storytelling.
right.
Right?
Like old Gunslinger.
Right. Well, Western storytelling, and even film techniques and stuff like that. Because if you look at history of film, there's it's really the more privileged countries that have had more longer history of film.
Sure, yeah.
Right, because of the technology, because of the affordability of it, and that sort of thing. And so, that's why Asian film, I feel like, it started later, but once it caught on to what it was about, they had these waves.
Yeah.
Right, Japan first, probably, and then Hong Kong later after it, after it separated from China. And then, and now even now, there's so much more Chinese film from the mainland that is becoming huge. I mean, Bollywood too.
Yeah.
I mean, the rise of Bollywood. So you see these
Pan-Asian
weird
stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. You see these waves coming out of Asia that are pretty interesting, and they're always usually associated with some sort of like socio-political or
They're topical.
yeah, exactly. But it changes with the times, right?
I also put away the first hour of RRR this week.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
I love RRR.
Good movie.
And I
Even though I hear it's propaganda.
I don't care. I'll drink that all day.
I love I just love how it's like we're not going to pretend this is first of all, I love that no animals were hurt in the making of this movie, and they're like the snake, the wolf, the tiger, and I was like,
Right.
I'd heard about all of these insane scenes that went down, and I was like, okay, and it got by the wayside, so I was like, I'm going to start watching it. I love the superhero aspect to it. I love the over the top campiness to it. It keeps me entertained. So there's the story, which is obviously the first R.
Yeah.
Then there's fire versus water joining up, because I'm right where they meet, and he
Oh.
does something on the bridge.
Yeah.
And
You're not even at the best
yeah,
parts.
no, I'm not. Like I've seen the tiger, I've
Yeah.
seen the fight through the crowd.
So have you seen the bridge scene?
The bridge scene is right where I've stopped.
Dude, that's the best. One of my favorites.
And that's where he's like screaming at him, and he's
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to
yeah.
communicate to him. So I'm like, is it like it I just love how it doesn't take itself seriously.
It's so insane, and it's like a movie I'm hoping one day they'll show at like a local theater here or something where with the
I don't know how that movie could like. I would go see that movie in a theater.
Oh,
it is a meant for theater block. It's a blockbuster.
It is, because you just want to cheers.
You do.
every time like some insane thing happens, and you go, wow. Like, but there's a scene where the one guy he like fights off like 500 people to get one guy, and he's
Yeah.
just like, it's insane. It's very John Wick and The Raid all in one. No, it's so fun, and it's one of those movies I put it on, I think, before it blew up, and I was like, what is this movie that Netflix really wants me to watch? And yeah, I was so surprised of how much I enjoyed it.
I heard it reviewed a few times on some podcasts, and I was like, I know I'll like this.
Yeah,
Like,
you will. Yeah,
it's CGI porn,
it is.
really, but
Yeah.
it's beautifully shot.
Yep.
It is like it feels like a Bond film.
Yep.
It's got that big action, big. Is there going to be a romance story involved in this at all too?
Yeah.
And it's got what's his face who just recently played in
The British guy.
Ahsoka, the British guy,
Yeah, yeah.
Ron or Rick, or he just passed away.
I
too.
don't know his name, but I know
Yeah,
what
the
you're
guy,
talking about.
the
Yeah.
British asshole who's like, you're going to use a bullet on this person.
yeah.
And they even dub their language, like even when they're in English, they're
Yeah.
still dubbing it. And I was like, that's brilliant. Like that's making me love everything about it. But the rise of Bollywood is insane. Like I mean, I just like seeing when I go to Landmark to go book a ticket that there's like 12 Bollywood
So
movies that
many,
you can see at Landmark theaters.
At Landmark, at all the theaters now, Cineplexes and stuff. It's crazy. And I've gone a couple times, like just random, because I'm like hungry for a movie, and I'm like, and the crowds are so into it. I feel bad. I saw Monkey Man on like a really quiet Thursday or Friday, and I was like, I wish I saw this on the weekend at a busy theater, because I have a feeling people would have like
Been cheering
and going crazy, because it's a really wild movie, that one.
Do you guys remember the first time you started to be like, all right, I stop feeling like a trope on screen and I start to feel like I'm represented? You talked about this at the beginning of the show, like where representation and finally getting to see yourself in a movie or like experience what you've experienced. Like, is there a movie in your childhood or just recently that you're like, they're getting it right? They're really they're focusing in and I'm like, yay.
Yeah, it's gotten so much better.
I've kind of two examples. My big one that I think about, and I remember I was in Toronto, and I was in a program, and I was a hotel room next to my friend who was in the program with me, and I watched the YouTube trailer that just came out for Danny Boyle's Yesterday, which is like not a great movie, but I like that movie.
It's
not,
good.
It's a like
You're
it's
gonna steal
very
a catalog of
It's
songs.
hard work.
yeah.
Steal that one,
It's a
like-
cheesy movie, and it doesn't even has a lot of problems story wise.
But you sing and play guitar.
But I sing and play guitar, and it's about a brown dude who sings and plays guitar, and it's not about like, it's not an Indian movie,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I was like, oh my god! I showed it to my friend. I said, "Did you see the new trailer to the new Danny Boyle movie yesterday? It's all the Beatles. You're gonna love it." And I'm like, man, this movie gets me excited because finally, it's like that's a role I could have been casted for, and it's weird for me to say that,
Yeah.
like lately people online have been like, it's not gonna happen, but they're like Dev Patel as James Bond, which I would be all over.
Sign me
It'll
up.
never happen. But like part of me is like, if that does happen, my God, like the imagination that I could be James Bond one day, that's crazy. And like, you know, it's that thing where I remember I went as Johnny Cash one year for Halloween. It was like a quick, simple costume, and I remember someone going, "Oh, brown Johnny Cash," you know, and it's that fucking thing. You know, I can't be James Bond. I'm brown James Bond. I'm brown Johnny Cash.
Well, and that's the point, is that if it gets into movies, then it becomes part of the ether,
Well,
and then it just gets standardized.
Yeah.
Why would you want to be James Bond, though? I mean, like, because James Bond obviously is this British agent.
He's a beautiful man who fucks a lot of women. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people. I guess there's a lot of people who live in Britain now that could be secret agents, right? And have that lifestyle.
Right.
But does it have to be James Bond?
No.
It can be like a new character. It could be a different character.
Could be Monkey Man.
That's the thing too, is that like you've got, like, okay, I said this, and me and Charles were talking when we went to go see Prey, and how they used Prey with the indigenous storyline.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you need to put Predator in every time period.
100%. Yeah.
And you need to do it in feudal Japan next. You need to do Predator versus Samurai. You need to do Predator versus what like something in your culture. Ian.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
But take it and run with it. And that kind of thing, I think, works well, because you're getting something that you know with something that you don't know. But it's kind of insulting when, like, make a new story is the point I'm trying to get to here, right? Where, like, why would you want to be James Bond? Let's make Monkey Man, where like it's this revenge tale. Yeah, it's John Wick.
It's John Wick.
But
yeah.
it's John Wick from this person's
For
perspective.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, actually, something that they had there, you know, there's an opportunity there, right? Instead of making it James Bond, instead of making it 007, they could easily have spin-offs of other agents in that same world.
Yeah.
100%.
Right, and bring James Bond into, like, they do a mission together or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But then have their own movie, right? Like, so
They've talked about certain things. Like, I think Skyfall, they talked about bringing Sean Connery back for. Have you guys seen Skyfall?
Yes.
So like the last act where they go back to the orphanage and there's an old man there that took care. That was going to be Sean Connery.
Oh, interesting.
At one point or something like that. I can't remember the full details, but but we were going to open up to this universe that, like, 007 is just a number. Everyone, all the people you've seen were James Bond at one point. You know, it's just like, it's just a number, and all these other people have, like, taken it over. So, but they they killed that eventually.
Just like basketball team numbers.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
it just doesn't fucking
Why
matter.
does it have to be that one person's number forever?
I don't
Like,
know.
it's-
Like, it just doesn't make sense. The only other one I want to also just quickly mention was Master of None, which was Aziz Ansari. And and I think there's like when that show specifically came out, it was just like I was, you know, in my early 30s and was just very taken back. Like, this is a show about a brown guy dating, you know?
Yep.
And
it wasn't about him being brown.
It wasn't about him being brown. There's one episode that's so good. Yeah. It's like the second episode of season 1 or maybe third episode that is about and it's so relatable. And I think it's relatable in this universal concept, but also specifically to, you know, South Asians or just different cultures, but the dad comes, Aziz Ansari's dad comes up to his dad to be like, hey, show me how to use my iPad, and Dad, I'm busy, I gotta go see my movie. And then it cuts to the dad's origin story of coming to the country and shows like these just highlight moments, and then the son can't spare 5 minutes to show his dad how to use the iPad and how much struggle the dad has had his entire life. And it's so funny.
Yeah.
And it is like cultural, but it is universal at the same time. And it you know, and the show also spoke to dating, not as a brown guy, just as a fucking person. And I was like, wow, this is about me in a weird way. So
I related to that show too, and I'm not a brown guy.
Yeah.
But the brown guy has an Asian friend.
He does. I know. So this was a show about us.
That's right. That's right.
From my point of view.
And his name is Allan as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. You're right.
Allan, yeah.
Well, art imitating life over here.
That's right. So many similarities. Yes, I was gonna say that actually was probably that movie that show Master of None was one of the best examples, I think, of just getting away from the stereotypes of like fish out of water stories and just looking at Asian characters in society having the same lives as everyone else. Like, there's nothing special about that, but there is something special about it, So it's kind of nice.
It's a shared experience that is not shared the same, right?
Yeah.
How you live here and how someone who comes from there, how you grocery shop might be the same, but it's still going to be different.
Yeah.
How you experience family is going to be the same, but it's going to be different.
Yeah. And I don't want to make this political, but I mean, like, I see a lot of like
hot take.
I see a lot of like people commenting on the internet, and I know that you should never read the comments on the internet, but sometimes you just can't help it. And there's so many people who complain about, oh, Disney's big, it's so woke now. Oh, this is so woke. It's so woke as it's derogatory. But and it's annoying because it isn't really that woke. It's just normal. It just should be regular.
Woke has been given too much room to breathe. Yeah. The word is too blanketed, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think you know what you're saying because this isn't woke. This is just a different story. Like, there's nothing. It shouldn't be political. It should just be easy. It should just be done, right? It shouldn't. As soon as it comes up, it's like.
Well, I think the complaint is like when they reboot things, like the new Mr. and Mrs. Smith TV show,
okay,
with Donald Glover and Mia.
I don't remember her name.
Maya Erskine.
Yes,
Erskine?
Maya. Yes,
Maya Erskine.
Maya. I believe,
Anyways, just saying how they had to fill these roles with diversity because it's to make it diverse.
And then you go, Donald Glover fucking made that show happen. So
yeah, exactly. He's the executive producer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and like, is it because like I know producer might be a dirty word to some people, but like, where does the problem happen? Why is it such an uphill battle for anybody else's story besides a contemporary white story to get made? Like, obviously with shows like Beef, when you see the numbers and the resurgence, like what's his face winning for The Boy and the Swan, an Oscar for Miyazaki, right? Like the grandfather of
The Boy and the Heron.
Boy and the Heron. Sorry. The Boy and the Swan.
The Boy and the Swan.
I don't know my waterfowl. I'm
like...
sorry. The Kid and the Bird.
That'll be the Chinese remake of The Boy and the Heron.
The Swan.
It's the Swan. They'll just be showing on Chinese CC television.
But like, why is it like it shouldn't, like, why? I just don't understand why it's so hard. There's got to be somebody getting in the way, making dumb fucking decisions. Because like most of these pitches can be about anybody, right? Like you boy meets girl, the hero's journey, whatever 12 stories you're picking from. You can just be like, all right, let's tell this from the Indian perspective. Let's tell this from the Asian perspective. Let's tell this from a different perspective. No. Like, is it the studio? Is it the producers not wanting to risk the money? Because really, so
mix
like
of everything. I think it's what you were talking about with the Bong Joon-ho speech at the Oscars, where he said people are afraid of subtitles. People are also afraid to see a different, maybe non-white person on screen sometimes, and producers get scared there too, I think, in some capacity. Like, obviously there's been like changes, but we still have a lot of Christmas movies that are just about white people living within their white society in their perfect white house.
But I think that as far as Canadian film goes, I feel like there's way more support now for to kind of make up for a lot of the lack of representation, right? So you see a lot of funding for Indigenous film now, a lot of funding for diverse stories and marginalized voices. There's a lot of opportunities for that type of thing. I mean, like, you just got one, right?
Yeah,
you just got a talent to watch, right? Which
and mine's like I'll say it's about a South Asian father and son, but it's like not it's not a movie that's culturally heavy, but like that's featured, and like I did it from my perspective of growing up. I don't know a lot about my culture, I'll be honest, but I think there's other Canadian films that's paved the way, like Rice Boy Sleeps and all these other films that have like
another great festival darling from 2022, 2023.
Yeah, I saw that, Fascination, actually.
Yeah.
Anyways, like I think there has been, and I think to go off what you were saying, it's just I think there's been champions now that have broken through that are trying to help. When we talk about Mr. and Mrs. Smith, is like Donald Glover is trying, and his like directing partner, Hero, I don't know his last name, but anyways, the guy who directs a lot of Atlanta, he's directed a lot of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Yeah. He and them together, like they've broken through, and they are now championing other people and bringing on other people, and making different things for everyone else that shows diversity.
We have kind of glazed over it, and I pointed it out with the bird and the child. But I mean, anime storytelling is something that I think is like it's you can do so. I don't think I'd watch animation if there was no anime. Like, it is the only style of animation I enjoy watching. I like the adult factors in it. I love the violence that comes with it, no matter what it is. I love that it is beautifully shot. Like, Howl's Moving Castle is just a happy place for me because it's this fantasy world. But I wonder why. Like, I wonder why it's so good and nobody else can get.
What was your introduction?
Ninja Scroll.
Oh, well. Okay.
Ninja Scroll was my first, and I was like, this is insane. Like, the things that you can do and that are being done in this movie, I just didn't know a world of animation existed, because I always look at animation and I'm always like, it's childish, right? Like, I have a very hard time getting into an animated show. Invincible works for me because it's ultra violent and it deals with adult themes, but my brain always clicks to, if it's a cartoon, it's probably like Gummy Bears or like Warner Brothers.
I have a similar problem.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm the same way.
And I think with Japanimation and anime alone, it has done so much for the genre that it honestly gets too overlooked.
I think story trumps all, so I think that's where it like comes back. Where I'm like, they're good stories. I think my introduction, if this counts, Sailor Moon.
Sure.
Yeah, like, you know,
Sure.
Of course it counts. I mean, like,
Like,
does
right?
it not count?
I don't know. I
it's
was just
anime.
like, it's like, isn't it? Is it considered? Like, I don't know. I never really thought of it before. I'm like, it's considered anime.
Yeah.
But that was my introduction. But the thing is, I didn't even realize. Like, that's why I'm like even saying, I'm like, I didn't even realize it was anime till just now when I'm thinking about it. And I think it was just good storytelling. That's what it was. It was just like really strong storytelling. And I think that's one of these things Miyazaki and other anime shows like Cowboy Bebop and all these other ones, you know, like they just have really strong stories, and they've just and then on top of it, they just get like stronger and stronger visual styles within that because of the anime. So I think that's something. And I'll say, like, a person that has not watched a lot of Miyazaki films, but the few I have loved and get it. Again, same problem as you. Have a hard time getting into it, but like once I'm in it, I'm like, damn, I get it.
Only animation I watch, like Rick and Morty. Fuck that. Like I'm snobby. I'm above that. I'm sorry. But like animation, I bow at the temple of anime. I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, my introduction was Astro Boy.
I was gonna say Astro Boy.
Astro Boy was the
but
first.
I wasn't sure if that was anime. That's
I mean,
funny.
like, yeah, I mean, like,
Astro
it was
Boy was mine then. Yeah,
probably the first Japanese
So
animated
good.
show that I ever watched as a kid and grew up with, and just like, you know, fell in love with because of and then like that led into watching, like, you know, the Robotech and like all the other crazy like giant robot anime that was out there that was so prevalent like way back in the 80s. But this is, and then yeah, Akira and Gundam and all this other stuff that came before, and then we saw
Pokemon.
I feel like in the 90s. Well, I was never into Pokemon.
Okay.
That was like a little bit. I guess I was too old for it or whatever. But like there was a period
They're
in the
coming
90s.
for you now that you put that on the show.
Yeah, there is a period in the 90s where there was the start of like anime as drama. I mean, like, maybe it was probably popular before then as well, but it really only got to my knowledge and in the 90s and like maybe like early 2000s of like anime as drama, right? Or like almost like soap opera, or like and then it was kind of blowing open the doors of that genre. But Miyazaki, you know, the reason why I think he was so influential is because before Miyazaki, and a lot of those dramas, those anime dramas, are influenced so heavily by Miyazaki, because a lot of his movies aren't really action based, right?
No.
They're fantastical, but a lot of the time the protagonist is a young girl who doesn't need a savior, just figures shit out.
Is going through a thing.
Yeah, going through things, figuring shit out.
Yeah.
You know, there's crazy stuff happening. They're just figuring it out. And everybody's a mix of good and bad.
Yes.
There's no villain, there's no hero. Everything's just kind of like, it's a reflection of real life, even though as weird and as crazy as it can be.
But that's what animation's good for. It's the other way. I mean, everyone always says it's cheaper to tell it that way, but like they've made it where it's like the better way to watch some of those stories. I probably wouldn't watch them if they were done
Live action.
Yeah. Right? Like they wouldn't translate.
Well, I think that's why, like, Cowboy Bebop failed, and Pokemon. None of the Pokemon movies.
Well, they say
have done
Cowboy
well.
Bebop tanked because it was just too much like the cartoon, and that is in this conversation that you if you're trying to emulate that world, you're restricting yourself.
Right.
Yeah, I liked One Piece. One Piece was good.
I've heard One Piece. Avatar.
Yeah, it's
Last
okay.
Airbender.
It's like
I've
it's for
watched it.
kids.
Yeah,
but
it's for kids.
it is a pretty good and accurate representation, live action remake of the
Avatar is
cartoon.
like we're talking about the Netflix one.
The
right?
Netflix
Yeah.
Yeah, that one just killed it its first couple weeks. Like,
Mm.
and I mean, I heard that the kid who plays the child is a little hard to stomach. Like he's just a little green.
Yeah.
But the story itself is like true to the it's book, graphic novel or book. Probably. Well, that's the same.
It was a manga
Yeah.
first,
okay.
and then it was a show, and yeah. Anyways, huge thing.
Have you both seen it? I haven't
yeah.
had a chance
What?
to see it yet. Avatar.
Yeah.
I watched it.
I watched it. I watched it more out of the curiosity of like, can they pull this off?
Yeah.
And they do, but like Alan said, it is very like childish, and you realize like something about like the show, cartoon show, and anime doing these lines or these things. It's a little easier to stomach when you watch an adult say certain things or like a kid say certain things. You go in real life, you gotta
Yeah.
go, oh god damn it, this kind of cringy and like
Like
it hurts.
Dawson Creekish, where
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
13-year-olds are having these huge like retrospective moments.
Yeah,
and, like,
totally.
you wouldn't think like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, Appa. And you go, you're calling your giant like flying boar or whatever, but like I don't know, it works better in cartoons.
And
I'm
then-
sure kids love it. I'm
It,
sure
it,
kids.
it is good. It's just like it's very kiddie.
You know what's not kiddie?
Hmm.
The best martial arts movies. Like,
Well, that's easy.
okay, go.
The Raid.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Really?
The Raid. Jackie
Raid.
Chan.
No, sorry, Raid.
The Raid. Yeah.
The Raid and the Raid 2.
Yeah, Raid. Yeah.
Both the Raids are fantastic.
Both Raids. Sorry, not Jackie Chan.
At the top of the list for
Though,
martial arts
though,
movies.
if we were gonna say Jackie Chan, it'd be Drunken Master.
Like, without Jackie Chan, I think you have you have a blind spot on the world of stunts. Stunts don't get to where they are without watching and knowing that he would squeeze in through tiny spaces, like showing that it could be done.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, if martial arts and kung fu isn't your jam, I get it, but you're missing some really sweet fucking head kicks and like really weird. Like it's an enjoyable genre, and it used to be token, but I think it's gotten to the point where like it's more of a respected format.
It's funny when Jackie Chan kind of came to America, like in more Hollywood sense, where like Rush Hour became its film and stuff, because those ones aren't as good for whatever reason. Like Rush
Right.
Hour, are
It's
enjoyable.
not as good
They're
as what he
fun.
made over there.
It's not as good. Like stunt wise, they're all there. It's just like there's something, and maybe this is similar to
Lost
like,
in translation.
something. Yeah, like there was something. Maybe he got away with more because of the system out there of like doing crazier things, jumping from building to building.
Yeah.
Versus in America when like Chris Tucker's involved and you got unions and stuff a little more.
A different format on set.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
it's a
but-
little watered down. I think that's typical of anything, though. Like you look at the like Taxi, right? Remember Taxi?
Yeah.
Oh, but have you seen Luc Besson's Taxi?
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
So like compare those two, right?
Yeah.
Like everything gets watered down when it gets remade in America.
Yeah.
But
Well, The Ring, prime example.
yeah,
Yep.
Right?
Great.
Like you
Great example.
lose a ton when you translate it, and that's the thing that in language, like how in dialogue, you can lose so much.
or Old Boy.
Old Boy.
Old Boy.
Great example, right?
Yeah.
Very good example,
Just-
actually.
Just you just it's capturing the visceral, I don't know, whatever the feeling of the original. It's
Didn't
almost impossible.
Yeah, you had it's clumsy. It's cluttered. I don't
You kind of go like with these remakes. I'm like, part of me, and I always say this even with the Disney animation to live action. I'm like, why would I see the less version of something? I've seen the best version of it. Like I've seen the best version of Old Boy. I don't want to see like the
Josh Brolin.
Yeah,
try
I
to
don't
do Old Boy.
I don't need him to try to do something that's already won. Like at that point, and that's what I kind of felt with Avatar, the cartoon to live action. I was like that's why I kind of watched it, like it was in the background, but I was like, okay, they attempted it. I get it. I've already seen the best version of the story, so why would I continue to watch it? You know?
Okay, but have you heard about Spirited Away, the play?
No.
No, but that sounds insane.
In Japan, you can go to the theater and watch Spirited Away.
I would do that.
In a theater.
So
It's
would
like a
I.
live, and I think they're starting to license it now so that other theater companies can do it.
Well,
Spirited Away Toronto.
Let's
Spirited
do it.
Away Vancouver.
Let's do it here.
It'd be crazy.
Yeah. Park
Let's
Theater.
buy the rights and
Yeah.
do our version of
Handsome
Spirited
Daughter.
Away. Well, like the set pieces that you
Rainbow
would need in
Stage.
the
Yeah.
story.
Rainbow Stage does Spirited Away.
Or we do like like that Wonka experience that everyone started suing the guy that sold tickets. Like we do
I heard
like,
about
Oh,
this.
yeah, I
Yeah,
heard
yeah,
about this,
Dilapidated
yeah.
Wonka experience.
yeah, where it's like not. It was like kind of a scam.
like a low rent Spirited
yeah,
Away is what
we'll
you're
do
thinking?
that. We'll just like
It's like the
charge
Fire
people.
Festival of
Yeah.
of
of like
theme shows.
We'll do that. And we'll just get rich and walk away.
Oh, man.
I mean Jackie Chan is Jackie Chan, but Bruce Lee is water.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee, like there's nothing I love watching more than Bruce Lee school somebody in something and Enter the Dragon. Thank you, Mortal. You don't have Mortal Kombat if you don't have Enter the Dragon. And then with his story, within his story of like it being challenging for him to be like, I want to bring this to America. I want to show the world this. And then being hunted for it and possibly killed, depending on what conspiracy theory you believe. Like the true to life format in his story is what I think makes martial arts that much more enjoyable to.
No, I think we don't get Jackie Chan without Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Like we don't get
Yeah.
any of these. Like he was the gatekeeper.
We don't
that
get
opened
Jackie Chan. We don't get so much. Even just
man, who is it? Man, that's
Donnie Yen.
up.
Donnie
Donnie
Yen,
Yen, Jet
right?
Li.
Yeah, we don't
Jet
get any
Li.
of the man, obviously, because there's a direct correlation. We don't get. We don't even get any the history of like American martial arts, like what's his face, David Carradine.
it's the
right.
Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't get that
We
whole.
don't get Karate Kid probably either.
Yeah, I mean, there's no
Well,
doubt.
maybe.
There's
That was-
no doubt. There's no doubt that Bruce Lee popularized martial arts movies around the world, right? Like before that, it was a niche thing. It was a niche thing. It was a distinctly Oriental
Yeah.
thing, and he popularized it for sure.
I remember watching I was being very young. I think my introduction to Bruce Lee was watching a TV movie about Bruce Lee that was on TV randomly on A Channel or MTS or whatever, the old Channel 8. And
Was
then
it Dragon, the Bruce Lee
I
story?
think that's what it was. I
Was
think,
Lauren
Yeah.
Hutton?
Yeah.
yeah.
and then,
Lauren
like-
Holly, yeah.
Yeah,
Lauren
yeah,
Holly.
and then I
So good.
started renting them because I wanted to see like,
Yeah.
because now I learned his history, and like it was also sad because I think it ends with him dying. But
Does.
like
Then
yeah,
there's Death Trap, Death.
something I don't
Yeah.
remember, but they even show like clips of the Green Hornet and stuff, and it was really interesting. But I was being very young. I was very young when I watched it.
You were
but I
being
was,
very young?
I was being very young
Just
mentally.
You chose to be.
I
very
chose.
young.
I'm choosing to be young now, but like in an hour. But yeah, anyways, it was like that was my introduction to him. So it wasn't even him; it was a guy playing him. But I thought his life was so interesting.
Yeah, what was
It's
his name?
very interesting.
But that being said, there was before that, before Bruce Lee, there is a really huge, strong history of these sort of like period kung fu movies, which is what it is based, which is where Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon came from, because that's based on that sort of like more traditional, where kung fu is also sort of mystical and magical, where people are like flying over trees and
Standing
like
on swords.
exactly, and like where there's like so that whole comes from this crazy history of having those type of movies, right? That's almost like its own genre itself.
It's so much fun.
I think House of the Flying Daggers. So
Yeah.
I think I
Yeah.
remember that one. Like that was such a beautiful film that people forget.
Was that Yang Jimu?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. House of Flying Daggers. Yeah, Yang Jimu. So I was in. I have to tell this really quick story. I went to a friend's wedding in Hangzhou, which is a city in China near Shanghai. It's kind of like the Banff of China. It's like the very touristy. People go there because there's a beautiful lake, and so like it's like the number one destination for domestic tourism in China. the lake it's called West Lake, and it's surrounded by resorts and restaurants and clubs and yada yada. It's hugely built up, right? There's a shrine, there's a bridge that goes over the lake, like a walking bridge or something like that, and then there's a shrine like right on an island in the middle of the lake. It's very picturesque. And Yang Jimu created a show, a live theater show on the lake. And so you can sit on these bleachers that are just on the shore of the lake, and the actors and the lights are all sort of pointed at the water, and everything happens on the water. Like there's people on boats, but then there's like people like running on the water, and then there's like these giant platforms that are on hydraulics that rise up out of the water, and they're doing these like crazy fight scenes on the water and on this platform.
It looks like something. Wow, this is insane.
Yeah,
I was gonna
it's
say.
like Cirque du Soleil. Yeah, exactly. It's like Chinese Kung Fu Cirque du Soleil, a la Yang Jimu, with the very colorful traditional like costumes, and yeah, it's amazing. So I got to see that, or at least a bit of it, because I think it's free to the public. You just have to go at a certain
It's like
time.
2 and 4 and 6 o'clock. You can just show up for.
Yeah, something like that. Or, and so I saw part of it, like half of it or whatever. When I
thought you were going to say I saw it several times. It was like,
I stayed there all
Yeah.
afternoon watching it back.
but
to
just
back.
some interesting information
Yeah,
about
yeah,
like Yang Jimu. He does this thing, and yeah, maybe this is the thing. We should turn more movies into theatrical productions.
features, yeah.
Sign me up. I'm done. Stop making animation into live action, but make live action into theatrical performance.
Yeah.
So with Fascinasian, what can people expect at this year's festival? Like, what are you? Is there anything you've changed from the previous festivals? Are you?
It's the same format as last
Yeah.
year. We are the special things, we're doing. We always do some sort of like panel discussion or workshop. Last year we had Ins Choi, writer, creator of Kim's Convenience, do like a 2-day TV writing workshop. This year he couldn't do it. He is doing it for the Calgary festival, but he couldn't. His availability wasn't good for ours. So instead of that, we're doing a Manitoba celebration, a lot of
Cool.
promoting Manitoba filmmakers. We're doing that on the Saturday night. We're doing a panel discussion on Asian representation, the current state of Asian representation in media, which I think will some of that conversation will be similar to what we talked about here today.
Yeah.
But that one's actually going to be a fully fleshed out panel discussion with a bunch of different professionals from across the sector. That one's funded by the Canada Race Relations Foundation. And then as far as the other feature films, I talked about Rue. We're also featuring this awesome thriller horror from the UK called Raging Grace. It just won Best Narrative at South by Southwest.
Yeah, I've heard of this, yeah.
Yeah, but it's by a Filipino filmmaker, and it's about a Filipino mother-daughter who are kind of like illegal immigrants in the U.S. Or no, not in the U.S., in the U.K., and they get into this situation where they're working for this rich old dude, and crazy shit starts happening. And so it's really actually quite good. I wasn't sure what to expect when I first started watching it, but I found, and it's not like super high production quality or anything like that, but just I found that as I was watching it, I was getting more and more interested naturally, and there are a couple of those like jump scares, and I'm not a huge horror fan, but I thought that the story and the thrill of it, the scary parts were good enough for me to really be interested and engaged for the entire thing, and surprisingly so. I didn't know what to expect. I'd never heard of this film before. I saw it well before it won the award or that it played at South by Southwest. So happy. I'm glad we discovered it. Kind of.
It was a happy accident.
Yeah. But the Calgary program is a little bit different. They're still showing Rue as their opening night film and a lot of the same shorts. But their Thursday night, they're doing a free public screening of Past Lives, which was a big film last year, nominated for a bunch of Oscars by Korean-Canadian filmmaker Celine Song, first-time filmmaker. But then on the Saturday, they've got a different film, feature film. They're showing an American documentary called Starring Jerry as Himself, which sounds like a pretty crazy movie, actually, about a family who documents their immigrant father, Jerry, who is like a retired elderly Chinese man who is evidently recruited by the Chinese police to be an undercover agent. And then on the Sunday, their closing film is Float, which is actually a new rom-com starring Andrea Bang from Kim's Convenience. So there's a lot of Kim's Convenience connections here with Ince Choi actually doing a TV writing workshop as well as part of the festival in Calgary. And then our closing ceremony, closing night film is Queen of My Dreams.
Oh, nice.
What's that about?
Fazia Mirza, a Canadian filmmaker, she's done fantastic, or they've done really, really fantastic work. It's a very personal story about a Pakistani family living in Canada, but then it also kind of like utilizes some Bollywood kind of almost like dream sequences to show like tell like some parts of history, some past, but also dream sequences, and it's just colorful. It's really bright and joyful, but also deals with some hard topics. I quite enjoyed it. I think that it'll be a crowd pleaser.
The actress in it, she's in the HBO show The Secret Lives of College Girls.
Okay.
She's great.
Yep.
She's really natural, very watchable. Yeah, it's great.
And where is the festival happening this year in Winnipeg? So when people hear this, they're like, okay, these are good films. I'm going to go check these out.
Yeah, they're all happening at the Inuit Art Center, Kalmayak, at the Winnipeg Art Gallery.
Lovely room.
Yeah, it's a beautiful space. They've got a sort of a multimedia room that's called the Ilipvik Learning Steps.
Okay.
And so great because it's like very tiered seating, no bad seats in the house kind of thing. It's not specifically meant to watch movies, so you don't get like the surround sound stereo feel of being in a movie theater, but it's pretty good, and it's a beautiful space for all of the different events we have going on. And we want to also have that panel discussion there, and filmmakers who are coming, if they do Q&As, and we'll do Q&As after each screening and stuff. And so it's just a really nice space, and it's our home for this year anyways.
That's awesome.
It's interesting because Queen of My Dreams is in, like you said, it's in theaters right now, right? But we feel like the crowd that would go to see it in theaters and the crowd that will come to see it at a festival are kind of different.
Also, it's selected cities, selected screenings. So it was like 1 or 2 screenings, I think, at Cineplex for like a week. Like it was gone by the time I tried to go see it. So I don't even think it's there. So it didn't get like a heavy wide. It played TIFF as well. So it had TIFF support. I think Rue played TIFF. Am I wrong?
I don't know. Rue actually just came out.
Okay,
maybe
I'm thinking of something else. But yeah, I know Queen of Dreams.
Oh no, you're right. Rue had a special screening.
That's what it was. Yeah. So I've heard of this movie for a while.
It was a special presentation.
These are all very good, features he's suggesting. I've heard of all of them.
You co-sign this?
I'm vouching that these are very good.
Okay.
They're very good. But no, I just I follow a lot of festival films, so I know of all these films. I haven't seen any of them, to be fair, but I've been hearing about them for a while. So,
listener, if you want to find out any more information about this, in the show notes there will be a big link to all of the things for Fascination. If this is your first time listening to the show, thank you so much for listening all the way through. We really appreciate it. Go check out our back catalog. Ian's been on and he's been interviewed. Alan's been on before too. I've been Michael.
I've been Ian.
I'm Alan.
And we've been your real debaters this week. Thank you very much. Watch out, movies.
Oh, if you have any problems, dial information. Thank you for calling.